The yeas are 230. The nays are 197. Present is 1. Article 1 is adopted. The question is on adoption of Article 2. The question is on the adoption of Article 2. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. No. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition? For what purpose does the gentleman...
Madam Speaker, I ask for a roll...
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
I ask for a roll call vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will still rise. That will be in order. A sufficient number have arisen. A recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
All right, so now they're getting ready to vote on Article 2, the Article 2 obstruction of Congress resolution. This 2 articles of impeachment. The first one, abuse of power, Jake. The President of the United States has been impeached on that. Now they're voting on obstruction of Congress. I anticipate that there will be a similar vote, although there could be some differences. Some Democrats might vote for Article 1, but not necessarily for Article 2. Yeah. I suspect all the Republicans will oppose.
It will be a very similar vote. We know that a Democratic congressman from Maine who won a Trump district, a congressman...
A single name was whispered in a sealed courtroom filing late last night, and within seconds, everything changed. Prosecutors stopped shuffling papers, Trump's legal team went silent, and the judge paused long enough for people to realize something serious had just happened. Because the name in that filing belonged to someone no one expected to flip. Someone who had access to the one thing investigators never managed to get their hands on: internal communications about how the classified documents were moved, discussed, and protected behind closed doors. This wasn't a political opponent. This wasn't a disgruntled aide. This was someone who saw the entire process from the inside and suddenly turned around and handed prosecutors the one thing they were missing: the timeline. And once investigators saw that timeline, the case stopped being about misplaced boxes and started being about intent. Sources familiar with the situation say the witness brought in digital logs, message threads, and movement records that prosecutors didn't even know existed, things that contradicted earlier explanations about who handled the documents and when, things that raised questions about whether warnings were ignored, instructions were shifted, and procedures were sidestepped after lawyers began raising concerns. None of this has been publicly confirmed, but analysts following the case say the change in posture from prosecutors was immediate. Something was handed over behind those doors that altered the trajectory of the entire investigation. And once prosecutors understood what they were looking at, they didn't waste time. They reorganized their strategy within hours, reshuffling interviews, accelerating deadlines, and creating an internal structure that suggests they believe they've crossed a major threshold. According to people close to Trump's legal team, the reaction on his side was nearly instant, and not in a good way. Rumors suggest one attorney privately called the filing a grenade rolled under the table. Another reportedly warned that the narrative is collapsing faster than we can adjust. Late-night calls from Mar-a-Lago allegedly turned into full-blown strategy meetings where Trump demanded answers about who flipped and what they gave up. Some inside the room later described the atmosphere as tense and chaotic, with advisors raising their voices and arguing over next steps. Nothing about it resembled a team that felt in control. Instead, it looked like a group realizing that someone inside their orbit had just shifted the ground beneath their feet. The political world felt the shock almost as fast as the legal teams did. While most Republicans stayed publicly quiet, insiders say several key figures put a temporary freeze on public defenses until they could review the implications. Some donors reportedly called campaign advisors late into the night asking for private assessments of the damage. A few conservative commentators who typically defend Trump softened their language, saying they wanted to wait for more information before commenting. That restraint is telling. When political allies pause instead of attacking, it usually means they're not sure what's coming next, and they don't want to get caught on the wrong side of a story that could escalate quickly. Then came the leak. Somehow, a small portion of the sealed filing made its way into the hands of reporters. Not the whole document, just enough to start a firestorm. Enough to confirm that the new witness had direct interactions with Trump's staff about document handling even after lawyers had raised concerns. Enough to suggest there were conversations about how to manage access. Enough to hint that the story prosecutors had been trying to piece together was suddenly becoming clear. The leak wasn't dramatic in volume, but it was devastating in implication. Social media erupted instantly, with some users claiming this was the moment the case crossed into no-going-back territory. Legal experts jumped onto late-night panels saying this confirmation, even in partial form, could represent the most explosive development in months. Behind the scenes, prosecutors began quietly laying the groundwork for a new theory of the case, one that focuses less on the physical boxes and more on the awareness surrounding them. Awareness is everything. It's the key to proving intent, and intent is what transforms a messy storage situation into something far more serious. Analysts who have followed major federal cases say this kind of shift only happens when investigators believe they can establish a clear pattern, one that shows not just what happened, but what the people involved understood at the time. And that, according to multiple reports, is exactly what the new witness provided. Late that night, according to someone familiar with internal discussions, a private meeting took place among the lead prosecutors. No public statements, no press releases, just a closed-door gathering that reportedly stretched for hours as they reviewed the new evidence. One insider described the mood as stunned but focused, adding that the team understood this wasn't just another piece of the puzzle. This was the moment the picture itself changed. The question wasn't whether the evidence mattered, it was how fast they needed to move and how wide the fallout might spread once future filings became public. By morning, the legal and political landscape had completely shifted. Commentators who dismissed the case as slow-moving were suddenly calling it the most consequential investigation of Trump's post-presidency. Senators who had once brushed off the allegations were now phrasing their responses more cautiously, leaving themselves space in case things escalated. Even some conservative strategists were warning privately that the witness flip, depending on what else emerges, could reshape the political field months before the next election cycle. What's becoming increasingly clear is that this isn't just about classified documents anymore. It's about credibility, trust, and whether the narrative built over the last year can withstand the weight of insider testimony. When cases fall apart, they usually do so because someone with direct knowledge decides they no longer want to carry the burden of silence. And if this flip is as significant as early reports suggest, then the legal defense Trump has relied on may no longer resemble the case being built against him. The two versions of events are now diverging rapidly, and only one can survive the pressure that's coming. At the center of all this is one unavoidable question. If one insider flipped, who flips next? Investigations rarely stop with a single cooperating witness. Once the first domino falls, the pressure on everyone else intensifies. Prosecutors know that. Trump's legal team knows that. And anyone else who handled or discussed the documents knows it too. If this witness provided digital logs, messages, and communications that contradict earlier statements, that alone creates exposure for others who may have repeated or relied on those statements. The safest move in these situations is often to step forward early, not wait until everyone else is already talking. But the most important part of this moment, the part that has legal experts leaning forward and political strategists worrying privately, is the speed. Federal investigations don't typically shift gears overnight. They move carefully, methodically, deliberately. So when prosecutors reorganize their entire approach within hours, that tells you something extraordinary has happened. Something that alters timelines, court strategies, and possibly the political landscape itself. The public won't see the next filings for a while. They won't hear every detail of what the witness provided, but they will feel the effects. The tone has changed. The momentum has changed. The center of gravity in this case has moved, and it's not moving in Trump's direction. The people closest to the investigation say this story is entering a phase where pressure builds rapidly and outcomes can shift in days instead of months. That's when everything accelerates. That's when new names enter the conversation. That's when the stakes become impossible to ignore. And that's why this development, the quiet flip of a witness no one expected, is more than just another headline. It's the beginning of a much larger unraveling. How far that unraveling goes will depend on what happens behind the next set of sealed doors, what emerges in the next round of filings, and whether more insiders decide that silence is no longer worth the risk. For now, though, one thing is certain. The case has taken a turn that even Trump's closest allies didn't see coming, and the consequences are only just beginning to surface. If you want to stay ahead of every major update in this unfolding drama, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because the next few weeks are going to move fast. Faster than anyone expected. And trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.